Hey there, and welcome to Tough But True, where we look at some of the things that Jesus said that are pretty tough, but they're definitely true. We were introduced to Luke chapter 10 last week, and I want to now start to look at some of the things that Jesus said in that particular chapter. And we talk about a commission that he sent the 72 out on, that they were to go and to preach the kingdom of God. And the methods that he sent them on were very unique and very challenging to us in the way that we go out and try and reach people these days. Let me just read a few verses. Starting at Luke chapter 10 verse 1, it says, "After this the Lord appointed 72 others and sent them on ahead, 2 by 2, to go into every town and place where he was about to go. And he said to them, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Therefore pray earnestly for the Lord of the harvest to send out the labourers into the harvest field. I'm sending you out to be lambs amongst wolves. And go in the midst of the wolves. Carry no money bag, no knapsack, no sandals, and greet no one on the road." Now, I think that's really challenging for us as we look at some of the ways that we carry out our commission here from God. Interestingly, we are going ahead. When he sends out the 72, we're to go ahead of what God is going to do. That means that we're preparing for Jesus to do something. I wonder how often that we think about that when we go out to tell people about him. That it's just preparation. We have to go first, and then if God chooses to do something, if Jesus turns up, that's great, but first and foremost, we go. It's very unlikely that we see much fruit like this when we stay and wait for Jesus to go first, and then we'll follow. We do have to follow at times, but here he commands us to take the risk and go. And then, after we go ahead, he turns up. There's a real challenge in that we are not almost waiting for Jesus to show up, we just need to go. We take the steps and the risk to be able to stand and preach his gospel, but we have to go ahead of him. Only when we're there does he turn up. That has happened so many times for us when we've gone out on mission, that we've had to take the risk and take the steps, not knowing what God is going to do, not planning it, not ticking boxes to get results, simply just going. And then thousands of miles from home, often unexpectedly, Jesus shows up. We have gone first, but in the midst of our work, Jesus turns up. That's a model for us. But the problem is that we don't go. It's hard to go in the middle of a lockdown. I'm sure, like me, that you're finding it really tough in this season. It's fairly ineffective, struggling, but when this time comes to an end, we're still commanded to go and share about Jesus. It's tough. Of course, we often go and see nothing. And that is a challenge of mission work, really. That you pray and hope to see amazing things happen, that you just stand there one day in the street and Pentecost breaks out, but often it doesn't go like that. There are slim pickings, but we still go. Who knows what impact we make? But only if we go and take the risk to serve him. Then Jesus talks a bit about the fact that you're going to be lonely doing it. The labourers are few. Nobody brings in a great harvest with a massive team, because the labourers are few. Isn't that challenging, that there are so many people that profess to be Christians in the world, but those that are willing to go and speak and reap the harvest are so few? We know that. We have an absolute struggle to get people to come on mission here because they like their comfort. Their life is focused on other things, and therefore we travail, spend and be spent, till we're absolutely on our knees because the labourers are few. But I believe that the harvest is plentiful, and I believe Jesus at his command. And when I'm discouraged, I remember those words, that even though it's a lonely job, that the harvest is plentiful. And one day, as somebody has prophesied over us, we'll be standing in the street and Pentecost will break out. We'll see so many come to him because we go as a few. It's fact, isn't it? Evangelism teams are so small. I remember going to an evangelist conference, and the one guy I remember was telling us about his church budget was spending thousands and thousands of pounds a year on furniture and chairs, and his budget for tracts was about £150 a year to go out and preach. That was the investment the church made in evangelism. I wonder nowadays whether people should be investing in the few, because their harvest is plentiful, and yet we invest in big jamborees, big projects, big virtue signals, and the harvest is small. But if we invest wisely, the harvest is plentiful. And it's tough. Jesus says you go out to be lambs amongst wolves. Of course you're going to find it tough. It's going to be painful, dangerous, but worth it. We should never forget that. But then this final challenge. I know this is tough, I know, but it's true. What was Jesus saying here when he said, carry no money bag, no knapsack, no sandals, and greet no one? Here he was talking about a focus, a distraction-free commission. If you have your money bag, you might stop off on the way, a shop. If you have your knapsack, you might stop for a rest. If you have your sandals, you might make the walk easy. And if you stop to greet somebody, you'll be taken away from the journey that he has called you upon. Keep your eyes fixed on what you're doing. I find really that we should be challenged by this. During lockdown, I've taken the opportunity to get away from the phone. Really, it is a massive issue, I think, in this day and age. And it was a Simon type theory, but there's almost an enslavement to our phones and our media, the way we consume these things. We become available 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And that adds to the anxiety and the stresses and the problems that we go through. We want instant life. By putting my phone away and just relying on email contact only, it has enabled me to choose when I want to be focused on those things and choose when I want to focus on other things. Now I know that might be easy for a lot of people, but for me that's hard. It can be like an addiction to have your phone and to be always ready and accessible. That's how we should be with our Father. He's the one that we should always be listening to, undistracted, undeterred. We don't need access to the world at our fingertips. We need to be constantly in communication with Him. And yeah, that's a challenge. But if we remain to be that focused and unhindered from the distractions of the world, if we aim not to be taken off track, then we can remain focused on bringing in that plentiful harvest. We go ahead and Jesus shows up. We go alone, but Jesus shows up. We go into dangerous places, but Jesus shows up. And we go empty-handed, but Jesus shows up. That's the commission that he gave to start off with the 72. It's tough, but it's true.
Awake my soul, awake my soul, arise and bless your name.